Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said today that Israel will carry out an operation against Hamas in Rafah, regardless of whether or not regardless of whether or not a ceasefire and hostage release deal is reached. Is it still the case that the U.S. hasn't seen a credible plan for entering Rafah, and what will you do if they go ahead as Netanyahu is warning?
That is correct. We continues to be the case that we have not seen a credible plan that would address the varying areas of concerns that you've heard me talk about a number of times from up here and others. Primarily the ability to address the serious humanitarian concerns surrounding, again, Rafah is a region with more than 1 million people seeking refuge. It's an area that continues to be an important conduit for humanitarian aid, as well as a safe departure for foreign nationals. And so any kind of operation that does not address some of these key concerns would certainly be opposed by us. I'm not going to get into any hypotheticals, but this is something we're continuing to engage with our partners in Israel. Conversations continue to be happening at all levels, and we'll continue to press forward on those conversations and asking for what their plans may or may not be as it pertains to Rafah.
And are you concerned that this warning that they would go ahead with whether or not a ceasefire and hostage deal is reached could derail hostage talks?
I'm not going to speculate on that. What I can say, Daphne, is that we remain committed to reaching a deal for the immediate, for an immediate ceasefire that it secures the release of hostages and allows for additional steps to be taken in terms of surging humanitarian aid, and something that we hope will help bolster the protection of civilians as well.
Follow up on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Israel's track record in heeding to the U.S. Statements or calls could be arguably not great. What gives you confidence, or what makes you think that Israel would in fact listen and hear your calls not to going to Rafah?
I dispute with the premise of that a little bit, Leon. Over the course of this conflict, there have been a number of endeavors in which the United States has pressed for, that we have seen our partners in Israel undertake, dating back to the beginning of this conflict, even in the early days of this conversation that we were having around humanitarian aid. We also continue to see steps being taken as it relates to their cooperation on a number of other lines of efforts in the humanitarian aid space. But both, look, when it comes to humanitarian aid, when it comes to the protection of civilians, and when it comes to a potential operation in Rafah, our answer continues to be we need to see more. We need to see more steps being taken. And as it relates to an operation in Rafah, we have yet to see a credible plan that would address the underlying concerns that I laid out to Daphne. Olivia, go ahead. Yeah.
Just because the Secretary was also asked about this not long ago, he said that the U.S. views on this were well known, but he didn't address part of the question that whether Israel had in fact committed to present a military and humanitarian plan. So absent the plans themselves, has there been a formal commitment from the Israeli government to present those plans before launching any ground invasion?
I'm not going to be a spokesperson for the government of Israel. Through the strategic consultative group that you have seen National Security Advisor Sullivan and Secretary Blinken undertake their consultations with counterparts in Israel, discussions at those levels and through other interlocutors as part of those engagements. Those conversations are ongoing. As the Secretary said, the United States position on this could not be clearer. For how long we've been talking about this, we have expressed our serious concern about any kind of operation that does not address some of these key pieces, and will continue to stress and raise these very important issues.
Thank you. I mean, I totally appreciate not asking you for the Israeli perspective on this, only whether the U.S. has actually received a commitment from the government to have formal plans presented prior to any invasion.
I'm just not going to speak to further specificity about this process.
Two others on the region. If that's okay.
Mind if I jump to Jillian?
Sure.
And then I'm sure we'll get to everybody. Go ahead.